Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the industry vertical track. And if you missed the introductions at the beginning of the track, I'm Seshika. As the screen showed, I'm a field CTO and vice president for banking and financial services at WSO2. Now, I have been working with banks for over 20 years at the risk of sort of indicating how old I am. And prior to that, I have worked in a bank as well, in actual banking function. So I consider myself very much a banker, just like the customers that I work with on a daily basis. So today we're going to talk about going beyond digital banking. Because if you're a bank that is still kind of using digital banking as a differentiator, then it's not really good news in 2025, because digital banking has become a baseline, much like indoor plumbing in a modern house. It's expected, it's not celebrated. So today we're going to talk about how to go beyond banking, from being a tech-enabled enterprise to an actual software enterprise. Now, before we talk about banking itself, I want to tell you a little story about what happened this weekend when we were flying out to Barcelona for the conference. So 3 VPs, myself, the VP of the Africa region, Dinal, and the VP of Artificial Intelligence at WSO2, Malit. We landed in Doha. We were going past, we were traveling via the Middle East, so we landed in Middle East, and we had quite a bit of time before our next flight. So we decided to use one of the lounges that we had access to. And you know what? It was good lounge, good facilities, good company, and we kind of left on time as well to reach the boarding gate. But unfortunately, what we didn't realize was that the boarding gate was at the other end of the airport, and we were on this end of the airport. It included a train ride, a 10-minute walk to get to our boarding gate. So we started on our journey, and then we realized towards the end of it, when we heard our names being called, that we were cutting it too fine. So for the first time in my life, and I travel a lot, I was escorted into an airplane. It was an experience never to forget. But once I sat down in the flight, I started thinking about this whole thing, and I realized this airline, so all 3 of us were loyalty members of the airline. We all had the airline's app on our phones. We were scanned when we got into the lounge. So the app knows which flight we're taking, which boarding gate we were supposed to be at, and where we were. So even though the lounge was a no announcements lounge, they could have easily given us a little nudge on our apps that we should leave a little earlier to get to the boarding gate on time. This is the reality of customers. Now, this airline safely transported me across the world this Sunday. The facilities on the plane, the staff, the food, the drinks, the lounge facilities, everything was fantastic. But what I remember from Sunday is the fact that I wasn't given a gentle nudge to get my rear off the lounge and to the gate on time. This is how frustrating customers can be for modern enterprises. Banks are the same. Customers don't really pay a lot of attention to the wonderful work that you do to keep their finances safe, their financial data safe, the complicated products that they handle, and all the lovely things that they do. They just remember that the banking app was either not responsive enough, or it didn't give the prediction that they were hoping to get from the app. So with that in mind, let's talk about becoming a software company. Now, considering that I consider myself somewhat of a banker as well, when analysts and consultancy firms say every company is a software company. I kind of go, really, try being a bank and doing that, right? Banks are the most regulated industry in the world. They do the most complicated products like structured finance and asset-based lending and all these CDOs that almost shut down the world. And now we're expecting banks to be software enterprise as well. It's not that easy, I get it. But that's the business of WSO2. We help enterprises discover the software enterprises that are hidden within their organizations. And we help to dust it off, re-energize, rejuvenate, and get that software enterprise working so that you can provide the kind of personalized, predictive, responsive, intelligent experiences that today's customers relentlessly expect from all of our enterprises. So today we are going to use 4 of the technologies that we provide at WSO2 to help discover or uncover the software enterprise hidden within every bank. So first, I'd like to talk about APIs. If you were at Jonathan Pearl's keynote today, he mentioned that especially for banks, reuse is not an option. Reuse is mandatory. You have to reuse, otherwise you can't innovate and scale innovate and provide experiences at the scale that is expected today. So APIs are the building blocks of that of those data and functionalities of a bank. I apologize that the headline can't be seen. I think the headline said APIs are building blocks of a modern enterprise. So you're not missing anything by that. APIs help us liberate data that are trapped in silos. You already know that. And beyond just connecting and communicating, they are the standardized building blocks that come together to compose the kind of value additions that banks can provide for their customers. When you use APIs, you are able to manage those APIs and govern and secure them so that these building blocks that you are using to compose value addition for your customers can be basically designed in a way that it enables reuse and standardization and innovation at scale. APIs are building blocks for sure, but they are also the bedrock of collaboration. Because, as Jonathan mentioned in his keynote as well, why would you create something that is already existing, and why would you spend time duplicating something that someone else has done? So APIs not only enable us to share data and capability across the enterprise, across the bank or financial institution, it also helps us to share that capability and data with external parties. It could be our existing partners, such as insurance companies or currency brokers and those kinds of partners that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. Or it could also be completely external organizations like third-party fintech enterprises that are happy to utilize and leverage the data that you have, the capability that you have, and add even more value on top of that at innovated scale. APIs also give us a really nice view to what's really hot in the bank right now. So if you have a bunch of APIs, and if you analyze, observe the usage of those APIs and the traffic of those APIs, you will understand what capability and what products in the bank are really hot and are, really popular, and which capabilities are not so hot and not being used. So that allows you to really give more love to the products and services that bring you more revenue, but also it gives you a hint as to what needs to be re-looked at and restructured so that those capabilities are also become useful for collaboration. And finally, when you find those APIs that are really popular and having a lot of traffic, that gives you an idea as to what kind of APIs you can monetize. For as long as we know, IT was looked at as a cost center in banks. And suddenly now, we are the new revenue stream. So, so that's APIs. If you were at Sanjeeva's keynote, he spoke about how WSO2 helps do deal with the technical complexities and do the technology abstractions so that enterprises can do the business abstractions that allow providing value for their customers. But actually, if you really think about it, with the solutions BU and the focuses on these different industry verticals, we don't actually spend all our time here. We actually also help with a little bit of functionality and abstractions in the domain as well. So just like Nirmal spoke about the stuff we do in healthcare, I want to talk a little bit about specific stuff we do for financial services. The financial grade API, top part said financial grade API, so take my word for it. The financial grade API you see over here was introduced with PSD2 and open banking, introduction of open banking regulation, because the OpenID Foundation figured out that the API security protocols that we had at the time, the WSO2 protocol and OIDC, was insufficient to secure sensitive and important APIs, such as payment APIs and account information APIs. So they brought in additional guardrails and safeguards to further secure and safeguard financial APIs. So at WSO2, we provide first-class support for financial grade APIs. If you use our API management offering and identity offering, it's already in there. And this is the security profile that powers all of the open banking specifications around the world. So with API management in place, you can expect your customers to apply for a mortgage, and suddenly the credit valuation and the credit scoring and the property valuation, everything, their salary valuations, everything happens automatically because they are available via internal APIs, but also it can also provide the customer with a personalized insurance quote or a list of other properties that are probably better than the one that they have chosen because the bank has exposed that functionality with their partners and collaborators, and that way provide a much more personalized and responsive experience that customers expect these days. Right. Next. Layer of unearthing the software enterprise within is connecting through integration. Now, integration, I really apologize about the titles. Now, I can't remember what I put out there, probably something to do with the central nervous system. Integration actually is like the central nervous system of an enterprise. And the same way our human body's central nervous system connects all our all parts of the human body together. Integration does that for an enterprise, especially in the banking sector, when we are talking about hundreds of systems that are required to run the operations of a bank. Integration can connect all of them without discriminating whether it's a newfangled service or a legacy system that runs critical operations. It can and will connect everything because it can. So as you know, integration helps break down silos and unify different systems that we all know. But more importantly, it helps automate and streamline processes so that simple data transfers can be transformed into complex multi-step processes that do a lot more in an automated fashion without manual intervention, which can reduce human error and increase time to market exponentially. It also transforms the bank from that batch processing kind of operation to surviving in a real-time in a world of real-time expectations by using message queues and data enrichment. Integration can allow systems that take a long time to process things to be responsive and interactive as customers expect them. And most importantly, for the financial services sector, integration can provide digital powers for legacy systems. So there was a time where we were all talking about replacing core banking, like mainframe core banking systems. And if you really speak to people who've been in the banking industry for a long time, it's not as easy as it sounds. Sometimes it's just the worst possible thing you can do is to replace a mainframe core banking system that works really well for the digital and the cloud native benefits and risk all of the complicated functions that the bank gets out of the core banking system. So we are beyond that stage. We are in the modernizing stage, or the phase where we say, instead of ripping and replacing, let's coexist and provide the digital powers through integration technology, through event-driven architectures, orchestration, so that legacy systems can also survive and thrive within cloud-native digital architecture. All right, so just to point out another financial services specific value addition around integration. If any of you are from the banking sector, you may know that there's a deadline this year in November where all SWIFT communication has to be changed from the MT format to the MX, which is the ISO 222 format. So if any of the banks are doing cross-border payments, then they need to change all of their messaging from the older MT format to the MX format. Now, this is a simple API. Any bank can do this, but because we have so many banks that are customers and they all need to meet this deadline, we just created the API in a day and we made it available. So that's that's our thinking around creating more, taking on more of the abstractions to WSO2 so that you don't have to worry about that and you can just use the API and go ahead and innovate on top of that. So the idea here is to just indicate with APIs and really good integration, you can allow your customers to do complicated multiple cross-border, like a corporate scenario where you do multiple cross-border payments in one go, where the payments get routed to the different entities across the world. The currency conversions happen in real time. They all adhere to the different regulations of the different regions that the money is being transferred to, and all of this happens in a matter of microseconds rather than minutes or hours in previous cases. Right. The third level of discovery of this beautiful software enterprise that lies deep within each bank is to ensure that the security that you add to kind of fortify the defenses is not getting in the way of experience. So usually, if you think about security, you often think of security and customer experience as something that needs to be balanced, something that is on a seesaw almost. So when you increase security, you get the feeling that you kind of end up having to get inputs from the customer to authenticate and manage access. But if you have the right identity and access management technology, then it doesn't have to be a seesaw. It can be a sort of like, I don't know, what's another playground equivalent? Like a merry-go-round, where the better your security is, the better the customer experience can be. I'll explain how that works. Last year I wrote a white paper about behavioral authentication. So essentially about how we can authenticate a customer or an employee on the go without essentially having to interrupt them while they are interacting with the system. So once they log into the system for the first time, we continue to authenticate them through their typing patterns, through the data that we have about them. We have a profile and we match that with the data that is being emanated in that instance. For example, it could be about the IP address, it could be about the time of day that the customer is logging in. So we use that data and authenticate the customer in the background while they are interacting with the system without having to always bug them for additional inputs to secure the customer as well as the bank. Identity and access management obviously is very useful and important for safeguarding employees, but especially in a financial services scenario where we are literally dealing with hundreds of systems. Like when I talk about single sign-on in 2025, people look at me like, what's wrong with you? But in the banking sector, in the financial services sector, it's a real problem. Even in this age, single sign-on is very difficult to achieve. But with identity federation, identity bridging, single sign-on actually becomes a reality for the banking sector as well. So with that, you not only provide a great experience for your employees, but you also stop them from having to write down their credentials to 30 different systems on a piece of paper and essentially risking the safety of your systems. Safeguarding partners happens through API security, but also we look at partners such as our subsidiaries. There are banking groups which have subsidiaries or different organizational structures that made possible by the B2B to B2B to B identity functions that our WSO2 identity offering provides. So by safeguarding the customers and the employees and the partners, you essentially safeguard your systems and data, but also by practicing and implementing zero trust principles, you make sure that any access, any resource access is always verified against granular access control rules. So once again, even in the identity aspect, in 2025, where we are living in an ecosystem world, everything has to be consensual, even in ecosystems, right? So a customer's data or functionality cannot be shared without their consent. So there is an entire concept and entire life cycle that banks now need to manage in terms of customer consent, from obtaining it to recording it to allowing customers to manage it, allowing the bankers to manage it, to audit, to update, to finally delete and expire. And WSO2 provides consent management through identity technology, comprehensive consent management that enables banks to collaborate with external parties, and while doing that, ensuring that everything is done under the consent of the customer. So imagine a customer, she looks very happy for somebody who's accessing a banking app, logging into a banking app with biometrics and then not having to, use SMS OTPs and all these kinds of frustrating stuff, and being continuously authenticated along the journey. Along her transactions, and basically doing all the transactions, and also obtaining her consent to execute certain things, and the customer really feeling like they got a really good experience, but also was a very robust and safe experience. Last layer is about making sure that while the software enterprise is working within the bank, that we also refocus the banks and the technology team's time and energy towards banking innovation as opposed to running systems. Now, I talk a lot, so I have run out of time. So I'm going to go a little bit faster. All of this stuff, right? So from managing infrastructure, managing configurations, all this stuff that developers have to do before they deploy, their code, or the delays that happen between the different stages of the software development lifecycle. Can all be taken care of when you use an IDP as a service, something like Choreo. And what that does is that when you save up on those delays, it reduces the manual intervention and the manual delays that happen between the design, test, and deploy stages. It also means that you can downsize your DevOps teams and reroute that budget to either get more engineers that are actually building banking specific value, or hosting hackathons so that external parties can use your APIs and innovate, or just basically taking everyone on an overseas trip. Standardized tooling allows lots of development teams it ensures that all these development teams are using the same set of foundations to build stuff, which kind of removes or eliminates those hurdles or obstacles that usually get in the way of internal teams collaborating. So at the end of the day, policy-driven governance, Chris spoke about this 180-page API governance document that he had at HMRC that nobody read. Well, with things like Choreo, you can actually feed that document in natural language, and the policy rules will automatically get generated. So essentially, liberating your tech teams from the stuff under the hood and enabling them to collaborate. Jonathan today said that they have 17,000 technology professionals at Bank of New York, 6,000 to 7,000 developers. So imagine, without standardized tooling, how it's possible to kind of get them all to collaborate on building new value. So there you have it. The 4 stages of uncovering the software enterprise that is already within. Oh, look, the title is working again. I want to end this with a thought for you. I'm sure you've heard people saying, oh, I want my banking app to be more like Netflix. Like, forget Netflix. I use Netflix a lot, right? I still see movies that I've already watched in my picked for you section, right? Netflix is not that great. You can turn the tables with this technology and ensure that you are providing a predictive, responsive, intelligent, personalized service that one day, hopefully soon, people will say, oh, I hope Netflix is like my banking app. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, the end of my talk. If you have any questions for me, this talk is going to be followed by a beautiful panel discussion featuring myself and some industry experts. So leave the questions for them. Thank you very much.